This show is a proud member of the Nerdy Legion Podcast Network. Get more at nerdylegion.com. Enjoy the show.
This is Brightside Home Theater. Happy holidays, home theater nerds. Welcome to the Brightside Home Theater Podcast, a podcast that's all about the sights, the sounds, the scenes, the people, everything. And we're back to normal, talking about the sights and the sounds and the scenes. It's been so long since I've done this all by myself. Sitting down and going over the holiday classic, Die Hard 2, Die Harder from 1990 in 4K and in HD. Yeah. Running time on this, home theater running time, 1 hour, 56 minutes, 30 seconds. Let's get to it. Let's get right to it. Thank you to everybody at Patreon. Thank you to all of my Twitter's followers. Thank you all, everybody, for all the great support. We talk about all that on Tuesdays, but here it's about the sights, the sounds, and the scenes. So here we go. Die Hard 2, Die Harder. The picture, 4K streaming is so much better than the HD disc. Sorry. It is. By far, it is so much better. And we'll get into it. We'll get into it in the scenes. We're going to get into it in a second. The sound, we have a DTS Master Audio 5.1 on the disc. And we have multi-in. I don't even know what it comes through, what it is. It is very nice on the 4K version on Apple TV. I rented it on Apple TV, iTunes. The 4K version, $3.99. You can rent it. Highly recommend renting this. And the 5.1 mix on that, very, very nice. But the DTS Master Audio 5.1, way better. So what do? The sound on the disc is better than the sound streaming. The picture on the streaming is better than the picture on the disc. Which one do you go for? Well, I'm here to tell you, you go with the picture. Yep, you go with the picture. I've said it all along, sound is more important, and I still believe that the sound is more important. But guess what? You can bump up your sound, and I'm going to tell you how. So we'll do the sound first because then I want to go over the picture. So the sound, the DTS Master Audio 5.1, so much better. It's just beefier. It's got nicer bass, not great bass. Neither of these have great bass in them, but it's just louder, little bit more separation around the room. It's a fuller room because it is just louder on the disc, the DTS Master Audio. The streaming sound, obviously, the volume's a little lower. You just don't have the dynamic range. It just doesn't have the same punch. But what I did is I increased the audio level, the volume level. I always listen at 0. I go to reference level whenever I do a review. For the streaming, I did a +5. I went 5 decibels over reference level, and I bumped up the bass. I went in and I bumped up my bass to a +4. That got me pretty close to what I was getting on the disc. And I A-B'd back and forth, and then I just sat back and enjoyed the 4K picture. The picture is so much better, and there's nothing you can do on the disc to make the picture look better. So we can manipulate our sound just using some, a couple of little settings on your receivers. You can bump up the volume, and if you have the ability, you can bump up the bass management, so I can do that, and that gets you pretty close, but there's nothing you can do about the picture. And the picture on this, never mind it doesn't have HDR, never mind, it's not the same. I think that this picture for the 4K, it's been remastered because there's a warmer tint to the HD version that just isn't there, and it really plays out as you go through this movie. When we get to the opening scene, that looks pretty close, almost like you can't tell the difference between the two. But as this movie plays out, there's some scenes where the warmer tint takes over and it ruins it. So I love the 4K version. There's a couple of scenes here where the 4K is the end. The last scene that I'm going to tell you about today is fantastic. It's a great HDR scene, and I can't wait to get this on disc. So we have 4K streaming versus HD on disc. And like I said, the disc loses because there's nothing you can do to manipulate that picture, and it just doesn't stand up to the picture that you get on that 4K streaming. And then you just got to bump up your sound and you're off and running and you really enjoy it. Really, really, it's very close. There is a difference in sound, but it's very close when you bump it up the way I just described. So let's get that popcorn popping and let's get to these scenes because it's the holidays. It's festive. Nothing more offensive. Yeah, it kind of is. Nothing more festive than Die Hard 2, Die Harder. So let's get to it. That popcorn's popping. And let's start with, what do we start? Oh, it's been so long since I've done this, has it? Yeah, it has. Yeah. What do we start with? The opening scene, Die Hard 2. We get Die Hard, Die and Hard coming in from the left and the right, Die Hard 2. And a big collision in the middle that really nice, big, loud sound in your room. Little bit tinny, would have liked a little bit more bass in that to really shake the room as those two collide those two words collide in the middle of the scene, in the middle of the screen. But pretty cool. And then it goes from there, it goes right into, you start to hear the winds blowing behind you and the ambience of being outside the airport, because that's where we go right away as John McClane tries to talk his way out of a parking ticket / being towed. But check out the background, check out the lights, the Christmas theme, all the trees in the background, all the little lights, the snow is falling, it's beautiful. And like I said, above the dialogue, around the room, you can hear the winds blowing, all around your room. Really, really nice ambient sound there. But then from there, we go inside the airport, and this is where I really enjoyed this. And here we get a disparity in the sound, a big disparity in the sound. So you're coming into the airport, the camera is panning down the big Christmas tree in the lobby of the airport, and you hear some carolers singing. It's ambient sound in the airport, but you hear them singing on the left side of your screen. And what's really nice here is that it's locked to the left side, even as the camera moves to the side, but it's very full. And it spreads a little bit to the right, giving you that ambience behind you. But on the streaming version, it doesn't feel as full. It doesn't feel as enveloping behind you, because the volume's just not there. Now, like I said, I bumped up the sound, I bumped up the bass to try and equal it out, but you just don't have the same dynamic range. So going back and forth between the two, as I did throughout this movie, it really is a big difference in sound. If you just watch the movie in its entirety, it's not so bad, but when you go back and forth, you can hear the big difference in sound. So that right there, if you happen to be one of those nut jobs like myself that rent the movie for $3.99 on iTunes, like I did twice, but if you do that, then you'll be able to hear and it is kind of fun. It's a fun movie to go through. So let's get to the next scene. Anyways, at 3 minutes and 44 seconds, I call this one Hallway. And this is where everything gets really, really interesting. So, first off, really fun entrance of all the bad guys assembling, coming down the hallway, doors opening and closing, slamming closed on either side of your room. Really lots of fun with the sound here. So, that alone was worth the timestamp. But if you're not watching this on YouTube, I definitely recommend at least checking out this part, because this is the one part where I'm going to do an A/B on YouTube of the two different images between the 4K streaming and the directly from the HD disc that I have, which is part of the Nakatomi Plaza edition or whatever that I have, the big tower and everything. So on the disc, everything is tinted slightly warmer. All right, is a little bit redder. So in this one here, what we're looking at right now is directly from the disc, played through my Panasonic UB820, running exactly through the same exact system, projector setups, everything's exactly the same. And now this image is the 4K image coming from my Apple TV 4K latest edition with match frame rate, all match settings. I'm getting obviously the Dolby Atmos, but it's putting out the 4K image. Going back and forth between these two, and this is why I think this would be fun for people to do, because it's a real disparity here between picture and sound. So which is more important? I don't know, but the thing is I can bump the sound up to get it close, but I can't get it exactly there. But at the same time, I can't do anything about the picture. And once you see the 4K image and the difference, it's not as warm. It looks more natural, the image that we're seeing here right now of the 4K image on YouTube. It just looks more natural. You can actually see his face is a little bit shinier. It has like he's sweating, or there's a glistening to him. But this plays throughout the entire movie. I'm not going to A/B all the way through all of the images, but when I talk later about how it's warmer, like this next scene that I'm going to talk about in a second, where we talk about the taser and they're on the airplane. We'll get to that in a second. The warmth really comes in there as well, the extra warmth that you get out of the disc. I feel like I can't wait for this to come out on disc. The fact that you can rent it in 4K right now means that I'm hoping that we'll get the disc fairly soon, because it makes such a difference. And to A/B back and forth here, they clearly, I think, they remastered this, and I think it looks a lot better in 4K, even through the streaming. You're getting a better version. Obviously, the sound, we know, I've watched other movies where the image is pretty close, and it's so close that it's definitely worth going with the disc version, because and I'm talking when you're going from an HD disc with a better sound, is the image is pretty close to a 4K streaming image with the lesser sound. But here on this disc, it's the disparity is so great between the two of them, picture and sound, that the picture is better streaming, but the sound is better on disc. So which do you do? And that's why I think it's fun to rent the 4K streaming version and have some fun. Go through and you'll see the difference. You'll learn the difference on which you prefer, which is, you hear the difference in the sound, regardless of the system that you have too, because it's all relative to your system. So definitely, I think it's a lot of fun to check out. I did it. I'm going on my third time going through this movie. I've rented it twice. And I think it's a lot of fun. So like I was saying, let's move along to 5 minutes and 38 seconds. Taser. And this is where Bonnie Bedelia's character, Holly, is on the plane. The first time we see her in the movie, on the plane. And she has an elderly woman sitting next to her, and she pulls out her taser. She's telling the story on this is how she protects herself. And check out the image here, because when you go back and forth between the 4K and the 4K streaming and the disc, this overall scene on the plane is a lot warmer on both. It's supposed to be, because you have the sun setting in the background. So you have that red sky coming through the window. But what the difference here is, on the disc, everything looks red. The old lady looks red, holding up the taser. The background looks red. Bonnie Bedelia looks red. Holly looks red. Everything is tinted red. You would assume that that's how it's supposed to look. But then when you go back to the 4K streaming version, you see that just the light, the red sunset coming through the window is what is tinting what you're supposed to be seeing. So Bonnie Bedelia is sitting right next to the window. So she has the red tint. She looks warmer, much warmer. The elderly woman sitting next to her, further away from the window, as she looks at the window, her face has that nice warm tint to it. It's a lot redder. But check out the background to her. It's not as red. It looks more natural. So you get a better separation there between her and the background, which is slightly cooler, doesn't have the same warm tint. The blue that shows up on the taser when she zaps it, there's a little more detail in that on the 4K version. You could see a little bit more white in there. It's a little brighter at times as it sparks in between the arcs there. But there's a lot more separation there between the 4K streaming and the Blu-ray, which is that's just a straight HD Blu-ray. So that's why I'm saying throughout this entire movie, where you have that, it's a little bit warmer tint throughout the entire movie. It makes a difference, especially in these airplane scenes where you have the sun setting in the background. So definitely check that one out. The next scene at 6 minutes and 5 seconds, I've been on TV. And this is where John McClane bumps into the head bad guy. I forget what his name was. But they bump into each other by the payphones. And if you don't know what a payphone is, ask your dad. If you're listening to this and you don't know. Just kidding. But anyways, on this scene here, this is another scene where the 4K shines over the HD version. Because check out the coat that the bad guy is wearing. It's a darker, like pea coat type thing, and he has a coat on underneath it. On the 4K streaming version, you can make out a lot more of the details down towards his chest, where there's a lot of shadow. There's a lot of detail in there that you could tell he's wearing a coat over another coat, and then his turtleneck underneath that. You can really make out a lot more of the details there. It looks a lot nicer. Bruce Willis's sweater, the John McClane's sweater that he's wearing, a lot more detail there. The fibers in it, the texture to the sweater that he's wearing, a lot different compared to the HD version, where a lot of that is getting washed out, especially the darker scenes there. So the 4K HDR here on the rental is much, much clearer. Another great scene to check out if you're A-Bing this. All right, moving right along to 23 minutes and 26 seconds. Jets. Great jet sounds as they pan off. You're looking at two jets. They're escorting the plane that's going to be coming into Dulles Airport, the big C whatever it is, the big giant military plane. And these two jets peel off from center screen over you, off to the right rear. Really nice little just whooshes going right over you. A lot of fun. Definitely check that one out at 23:26. All right. Up next at 27 minutes and 10 seconds, tower. So here we go inside the tower, and they're just figuring out the weather patterns. They're learning everything that's going on. But the sound in this is really nice. So on the disc, the sound around your room, the chitter chatter, the sound of computers, the beeping and all of that, very, very nicely spaced around your room. Very prevalent. On the 4K version, it's the same, just the volume's less. So the room doesn't feel as full with sound. So you have to bump everything up. Again, but you can do that. The image, though, is you have all of those beautiful lights all around the room, and then the scene where you can actually see out to the runway and you see the runway lights. On the 4K version, the difference in all the different colors and lights is way, way nicer, way more prevalent there. big difference between the lights. On the disc, the HD version, it's just everything is so much redder. The faces, as they're looking at the computers, they're so bright. They're just everything is tinted such a warm shade of red. But then when you go back to the 4K, it's just the highlights, way more natural. It looks way more nicer, like the reflection off of a computer screen onto their faces, the red lights that they're seeing. Even to the point that I forget the character's name, but he's the main guy in charge of everything in the tower. There's a scene, and it's the clip that I used on YouTube. There's a warm glow coming from the left side of your screen. You could see almost like there's a computer over there that he's not looking at, but it's just glowing to that side of the screen, just glowing off of your screen there. In the 4K, not the 4K. In the 4K version, it's very nice because it's a nice separation between the bluish background that you could see of the runway. But then in the HD version, everything seems to be tinted red. That's even glowing a little bit more. You don't get that nice separation that you get out of the 4K version. So lots going on in this scene here. Next up at 32:38, emergency lighting. So this is where the lights all start to shut down. The runway lights all start to shut down. The HDR here is really nice. The lights are just way brighter. Not way brighter. I shouldn't say that. More vibrant. There's just a big difference between the HDR and the HD version because those lights just jump off the screen. The screen's not tinted at all. It's a really nice image. And then as they start to show all the lights, they're just brighter. You get a nice gradation of bright to dark there. Really, really cool. But also the sound around the room is really cool too with the HD ringing. Yeah. What do I got on the brain? The phone ringing, the alarms around the room, everything going off because things are starting to shut down. Just a really cool scene. Lots of fun going on, and another scene to really, kind of A/B for that HDR. See which one you prefer. All right, moving along to 44 minutes and 20 seconds, sitting duck. When you see the scene, you'll understand what that means. So this is where the bad guys make themselves known. They're in the airport, and who other than a very young Robert Patrick makes his appearance as a bad guy, and he fires the first shot, sets off a huge gunfire. The SWAT team goes down. McClane gets into it with them. Lots of great gunfire here. Lots of breaking glass. Really brings you back to the original Die Hard. A lot of those same sounds. Really fun shootout. Takes a little while, too. It doesn't have the bass, though, in either version, obviously. The streaming, like I said, not as loud. You need to bump up some stuff there. But even in the disc with the DTS HD Master Audio 5.1, it's just, the bass just isn't there, which isn't really like a DTS disc. You'd think it would be a little bit more. The breaking glass sounds great because that's supposed to sound like that, but this just didn't have the bass that I really would have liked out of this scene. Maybe it doesn't sound natural. Maybe these guns wouldn't be that boomy, but that's what I want in my movie. That's what I'm looking for. That's what's fun, right? All right, let's move this along to 48 minutes and 12 seconds, antenna ray, and boom! We finally get a nice explosion. Not as deep as I would have liked, of course, but it is really nice. Nice deep bass here, and the explosion moves to the rear of the room as that explosion comes through the windows or the sound, whatever, and it just really envelops you, and it just rolls right past you and goes to the rear of the room. Really, really cool. Really enjoyed that one. So check that 4812 called Antenna Ray. Of course, you can find all of these in the show notes. All right, let's move on down to 51 minutes even. And this one's called Church Lights. And this one is another one, HDR versus HD. And HDR wins, hands down. So the HD version, too much warm tint to it. I'm just going to talk about the HDR version. The HDR version, because you have eliminated all that red tint, you get such a nice separate, it almost looks 3D because there's a haze to the room. And as you come in the room, when they first go to this scene, one of the characters is coming down the stairs into this room inside the church where the bad guys have set up shop. And you can see the haze from the light coming down the stairs. Now, right after that, the scene that I have frozen here on YouTube, it's a shot from an aerial shot looking down on the room, and you can see all the little computer lights, all that you got greens, you got blues, you got yellows, all sorts of colors, all set apart from the black of the equipment, the wood grained floor, the wood floor, the whatever the guys are wearing, the jackets that they're wearing. The main bad guy's wearing that black jacket and you can see his hands on his hips. And then the other bad guy's talking to who's got a brown vest on. All of this stuff looks really, really nice on either version. But on the HDR version, the separation, the warmth of that wood floor really comes through. The cold black computer desks really comes through, separated against that warm floor. The red carpet down the middle of the room really pops off the screen. Never mind all of these lights. And then one of the screens is actually, it's a glass window type thing with the lights on it like a hologram thing. The detail you can see in that in the HDR version, so much nicer. This scene here in HDR is this scene is worth just getting it the $3.99 just to check out this scene and go back and forth, because you freeze it and you start to look around and you see all that extra detail that you get. And it's not because of the 4K. It's because of the HDR. It's because of that separation in gradation that you can get here. And of course, I think, like I said earlier, they remastered this because it's just not there. It just feels like it's all muddied, I guess, in the HD version. So much better. So definitely check that one out. Highly recommend that one. It's getting Christmas trees. We're on Christmas trees so far. So yeah, 3 Christmas trees for church lights at 51 minutes. All right, next up at 56 minutes, 45 seconds, pull up. Really, really nice bass here. Really nice explosions that just keep going. I mean, it starts out with the plane skidding into the ground. I mean, it's crashing because it thought that the ground was still 200 feet away, but it's skidding into the ground. The plane starts to explode in front of you, but then the multiple explosions that go off as they go to different camera angles, and it's just boom, 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 and it just starts to move around your room. Really, really cool how the entire thing just it envelops your room, but how you can hear those different explosions. And that's on both tracks, on both the HD version, which is better, a little deeper, a lot louder, unless you bump up, of course, when you go to the 4K version, bump up your volume and your bass, you're going to come close to it. But the HD version is a lot better here out of the box than the 4K version is. But they both do sound really, really good. All right, moving along to 1 hour, 6 minutes, 30 seconds, atmospheric audio. And that's my least creative way of naming this one because it's just about the atmospheric audio. So sorry about that. But anyways, this is where the tower is talking to the planes and they're giving them all the information, and the scene flips back and forth from the tower to the plane. Listen to the difference. It's really, really cool, but it's really subtle, and it plays on both tracks very nicely. But on the plane, you hear like you would on a plane. You hear that ambient sound of the wind, of just being in a pressurized cabin, stuff like that. But then down in the tower, you hear everything going on around them, the chitter chatter, the computer, whatever's going on all around that room. It's a big difference in the two scenes, in the two settings, but this is one of those things that I love to hear, because this isn't something that you can probably even get with a sound bar, or even, obviously not on your regular on a regular TV with regular TV speakers. you just wouldn't get it. But this, how it envelops around your room, even on a very nice 5.1 system, like what we set up for it, I say we as, like the podcast helped out, #dork in their little setup in there in the Dragon's Lair. But that room there at a 5.1 system with a nice receiver, you're going to get that great atmospheric sound. So that's what I like about this. That's one of the things that you can really pull out of the audio of a movie with a good system. So that's why I like to point those out. And I love to hear them just for me, even before I had a podcast. I love that stuff. All right, moving along to 1 hour, 14 minutes, 45 seconds, rolling by. This is really nice bass building here, and that's on both tracks. You get a really nice sense of that plane coming closer as the bass builds. So John McClane's coming up through what is like a grate in the ground and he's trying to push his way out onto the tarmac, onto the runway. And this plane is landing and it's coming at him. And the closer it gets as they snap back and forth, it's the bass. It's the bass that's building up and it's getting closer and closer. And every time they snap to the plane and it's coming closer and closer, you're getting more and more bass. Just really nice effect of how they get that. They give you that sound that just build and build. And it's, like I said, it's just bass. It's just, that's coming in. I mean, there's score going on and you hear him struggling and all that. But it's that low end is just really building as that plane gets closer and closer. All right, let's move this along to 1 hour, 18 minutes, 12 seconds, eject. And this is a really nice explosion as John McClane hits the eject button and he just shoots out the top of the plane and then the plane explodes. He goes up in the air. Just a really nice explosion that just takes over your room on both tracks. Obviously, caveats being said earlier. But the HDR, as he's landing, the HDR version versus the HD version, the HDR looks really nice because as he's coming down, you see the parachute, the depth of field that you get between that nice blue very dark blue night sky behind him and his chute coming down. Just a really nice effect there. And it looks so much better than it does on the HD version. Honestly, I really can't wait for the disc to show up because the way that sky looks, and it's even at the bottom of the screen, the bottom right of your screen, it's a little bit brighter because I guess that's where the lights from the airport are. And it just fades to the dark, dark blue that's on the top left of your screen. And then you have that warmish look of the parachute. It's got a little bit of red to it from probably reflecting the light from the explosion. Just really, really nice scene here for the HDR and that nice depth of field when there's nothing there except for a parachute in the middle of the screen and a night sky. And the lights and the atmosphere being lit up, the smoke and everything like that. So really, really cool. Really cool. All right. Jumping ahead to 1 hour, 29 minutes, 15 seconds. It's time. And this is where the main bad guy says to the general that they're helping escape. He says, "General, it's time." And then he pulls the lever and he shuts down the church, all the power inside the church. And this scene here, I thought was really, really cool because this is the closest I've gotten to anything sounding like. You didn't feel it. It just sounded. But that District 9 part where the District 9 sound where you could feel the engine stop under you. Well, this one here, even on the HD version with the nicer sound, the fuller sound, it still didn't come up through my seat. But it was nice how we're never going boom. And everything shut down. It was a really cool sound, very subtle, but again, with a regular TV or just a sound bar or something, you're not going to get that. But with this here, with the nice system, you're going to get that nice sound of when he goes, "It's time," and just the whole room shuts down, and you get that nice effect coming up. I wish you could have felt it maybe on the disc when the 4K disc comes out. Hopefully it'll have Atmos or DTSX. That would be really cool. But all right. Let's get to this next scene at 1 hour, 32 minutes, 24 seconds. Sled goes boom. Another very creative description of exactly what goes on the screen. John McClane's sled goes boom. It explodes in midair. But what's cool, up until this part, you get a lot of nice gunfires. They shoot it out as from the church all the way through with the snowmobile chase. And John McClane's snowmobile explodes midair. But the way it explodes, nice bass in the room, but it starts at the left front high corner, top corner. And then the explosion just spreads as it shoots across your screen. Really nice effect there. Really enjoyed that in both tracks. Really, really cool. All right. Jumping ahead very slightly to 1 hour, 37 minutes, 55 seconds, almost pretty much on the button right there. The exact timestamp for holsters. And I liked this scene for the sound, but I also wanted to talk about this scene too, because this is where McClane goes back to the airport police headquarters, and he has figured out that they're using blanks. So, they have the two different clips. They have the red clips, which are live rounds, and they have the blue clips, which are blanks. So they can pretend that they had this big shootout and nobody gets hurt. Well, McClane goes back and he unloads the blue clip on Dennis Franz's character in the middle of police headquarters. He just unloads an automatic weapon and nobody shoots him. Everybody draws their gun because he's got an automatic weapon out. Then he fires it. And apparently these police are so well trained that they do not shoot until they see bullets hit. Not the sound of an automatic rifle going off this isn't semi, this is automatic. This is the movies. An automatic rifle going off inside a police headquarters aimed at the captain. And nobody shoots John McClane. But what is funny is but what is cool for home theater parts is that when everybody realizes, now we can put, he's unloaded the clip. Now nobody got hurt. We can put our weapons away and everybody holsters. And in your room, you can hear all the guns being holstered all around your room. It's all around you. It's really, really cool. It's really quick. But it was a really cool end to the scene when, in all actuality, in real life, at least 1, 2, maybe 10 people would have shot McClane, I would hope. But you just don't unload an automatic rifle inside police headquarters. All right, unless you're doing an office pop. That's a segue right there. All right. That actually isn't a segue. That's a pull. So, all right, let's move along to this next scene at 1:41:28. Open Sesame. That's what I'm calling it. This is where the hangar doors are opening for the big jet to be able to escort these bad guys away off to their island or wherever they're headed. And the bass rumble here is really deep, really visceral. This is what I'm looking for because it comes up through your seat. Obviously, the HD version with the disc with the really nice DTS master audio, really, really good, much deeper, comes up through your seat. Even on the streaming version, you get a little bit of it coming up through your seat, and then if you choose to punch it up, you will be able to get it. Just takes a little bit of tweaking, as I said. But this is what I was looking for throughout the movie with the explosions and with all the other stuff. Some of it seemed a little tinny as we talked our way through here. Yes, this is what I was looking for. You want that visceral feeling that as those doors were sliding open, you can feel it coming up through your seat as they got wider and wider. Boom, 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 boom. Would have liked this a little bit more on that scene that I talked about earlier where the rolling by, where the plane is getting closer. Could have used it there too. But this one here, so it is possible on this disc to do it. But this one here had it, really enjoyed it. That's 1 hour, 41 minutes, 28 seconds. Open Sesame. And the next scene, what do we got here? Next up, we have 1 hour, 50 minutes, 10 seconds. Yippee-ki-yay. You know the rest of the line. The HDR here is really, really nice. Really, it really is. And the explosion is really nice too. This is the scene where he lights he pours the fuel up, or the fuel has been pouring out of the plane, and he lights it on fire and it catches up to the plane. And as this scene plays out, the scene, actually, the HDR of the plane pulling away and the flame chasing it, it's just the separation between the night sky, the black background, the night background, the snowy ground, the plane off on the left, the flame coming across your screen from right to left, just really, really pops off the screen. Nice separation of colors, nice separation, nice depth of field, really, really cool. And then when the flame catches up to the plane and the plane explodes, your room is filled with sound. Really, really nice. Lots of fun here. Again, another one of those HDR scenes. Go back and forth, see which one you like. And this last scene, at 1 hour, 52 minutes, 40 seconds, smoke funnel. This is another HDR scene that's just, this one is insane. It's a crazy example of how good HDR can be. And this is where, so John McClane's running down the runway and Holly's plane is coming in behind him. So obviously we get the dark night sky. You have the bright lights of Holly's plane coming in, and the snow on the ground, all of the texture to the snow. But pay attention to the smoke funnel from the exploded plane behind you. So you have a plane coming in, and I called it a smoke funnel because of the plane coming in. It makes the smoke from the exploded plane turn into like a tornado on its side. You can see that smoke funnel, and it pans off from, it's just over like John McClane's head, and then it pans off to the left of the screen. The detail and the depth that you get in that with the HDR and the different gradations of gray, yeah, it's so nice. And then the fire and then the lights, so much better because, and it's, nothing is tinted incorrectly. It is all just like, everything looks natural. So you get that fire looks nice and warm against the cold area that it's surrounding it. And the depth inside of that funnel, that's all I can think of to call it, is a funnel. It looks absolutely fantastic. The HDR is just awesome in this one little clip right here. It looks so good. Really, really enjoyed that. Definitely check that out. This movie has been a lot more fun than I thought it was going to be. I love this movie, but going back and forth between the two just really, to me, made it just so much fun, and it gave me a new perspective on HDR and standard definition, or high definition, I should say. And I mean, it doesn't really do anything for the physical media versus streaming, because I still think that physical media is the way to go. It is the higher quality. But in this case here, you're getting a 4K version earlier than you would get it, because otherwise we've got to wait for the disc. So here's an opportunity to see how good the disc is going to be and the different steps we're going to take. And that's what's kind of cool, is because you have the HD version on disc right now, but then you can get the 4K streaming. But then when the 4K disc shows up, wow, gonna be fantastic. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Thanks for watching. Any questions, comments? Do you agree with me? Do you not agree with me? What do you think about the HDR streaming compared to an HD disc? Let me know. You can tweet at me at BrightsideHT, or you can email me at thebrightsidehometheater@gmail.com. All the links are in the show notes. Everything is there. You can go to the website, brightsidehometheater.com. Check out this podcast, all the other podcasts I've done, or most of them anyways, except for the first few. Check all that out. But thank you all for listening. Have a great holiday, everybody. Have a fun week. I'll be back on Tuesday with your questions and comments, so I'll check me out then. And until then, go push play. Hey, Fred. This has been a Hey Fred production, with theme music by Jeff Bernhardt and Throne Vault Productions. All right, I'm still here. That means it's giveaway time. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas. And today, we're ramping it up a bit. Last week, we gave out Justice Society World War II. This week, Arnold Schwarzenegger's Total Recall 4K disc, cellophane still on it. Yep, I bought 2 copies of this as well. So, the lucky person that can tell me, all right, first, it's in this podcast. All you got to do is give me the timestamp and the title. You got to tweet at me, the first person to tweet at me or email me the timestamp and the title of the timestamp of the scene that compared to the scene from District 9. It's an homage to a giveaway I did before, but I compared this scene loosely to a scene that I did in District 9. That is in this podcast. All you got to do is go back through, find what I said, send me the timestamp, which are in the show notes, so there's no ambiguity there. The timestamp that are in the show notes and the title. Be the first person to send that to me, and I will send you this brand new copy of Total Recall, Arnold Schwarzenegger's Total Recall. Good luck. Everybody have a great week. Happy holidays.